She'll be in the office and just tell him you're working with her, and that it's quite likely.
I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for February the 26th, 2025. Madam Clerk, please open the board for roll call. And members, if you would, please make sure you are signed in so that we can take the roll this morning.
My constituent down here is having a problem. So I need to come over here.
Thought you better follow.
He's punching it too hard.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 members present. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Members, again, make sure you're signed in this morning. Also, just a reminder that all the materials that will be presented this morning, all the documents will be on your dashboard. And also, before we go any further, are there any personal orders this morning? Seeing none. All right, today we will have 3 budget hearings, and we will be beginning with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. So if you want to be making your way up, Commissioner, we would appreciate that. And if there's nothing else, without objection, we are going to go out of session. We are out of session. And Commissioner, welcome this morning, you and your staff, and you are welcome to begin when you're ready, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Commissioner Denise Thomas of the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. We appreciate the opportunity to present our current budget to you. We understand time is limited, so I'll jump right into our budget. To my right is our CFO, Andy Summer, and to my left is Deputy Commissioner Buddy Hoskinson. We will share in the presentation on today. I'll begin with just a little bit of a narrative of workforce development. Over the course of the last year, we know we've seen workforce demand increase. We've seen record number low unemployment. We've also seen labor force participation be somewhat erratic. And so we as a department have invested in new initiatives to hopefully bring more individuals into the labor force. We are also seeking new investments to hopefully stimulate more folks to get the training need to meet the business gaps that exist across our state. And so therefore, there are 4 cost increases that we're proposing this morning. The first is the rural healthcare apprenticeship. This is non-recurring funds to expand registered apprenticeships and non-state apprenticeships in rural communities. This is from year 2 of the funding from shared savings from TennCare for $8.2 million. We are working as we speak on our comprehensive plan for rural healthcare. We can talk certainly more about that at the end of the presentation. The second is for $7 million. $2 million of that would be recurring. And this is to connect youth between the ages of 14 and 24 with career exploration opportunities and paid work experience. The department launched this in earnest on last year and saw incredible success with the program, so we're asking for a reinvestment. Number 3 is for our state workforce board. This is $4.7 million. $700,000 of that will be recurring. This is to enhance the board's ability to plan and execute workforce development strategies for the state. This would include things such as comprehensive studies of the wealth and all the dollars that's being spent on workforce, how we're getting the best outcomes, and how we can look at shared data sources to indicate where Tennessee is having the most success. Number 4 is 6.3 around micro-credentialing. This will be recurring funding for developing a statewide micro-credentialing program, which includes curriculum development, customized workforce industry training, and follow-up placement services. I will note that this is one that will be done in partnership with Tennessee Higher Education Commission, as well as TBR and Department of Education. I will turn it over to our CFO to go over our reductions.
Oh, go on. Andy Summer, Chief Financial Officer. We have two reductions. The first reduction is related to purchasing efficiencies we've realized through contract savings through negotiated contract prices. That's a total of $422,000 from state appropriation. Commissioner had mentioned also about increasing 3 positions on the previous slide. We want to offset that with 5 vacancies that we are reducing as well to make sure that we're not increasing our position count. The next slide. An update on the unemployment trust fund. The unemployment trust fund increased by over $74 million in calendar year 2024. Also included in that, $41 million of that was interest income that increased as well in calendar year 2024. And we ended at a balance of $1,439 million. As you all know, as long as we're over that $1 billion threshold, employers pay the lowest tax rates in the state of Tennessee. So it's good to have that buffer of $439 million. We do project continued growth in 2025 as well.
Good morning, Buddy Hoskinson, Deputy Commissioner. To give you a few highlights from the programs, as Commissioner mentioned earlier, the youth program, employment program really gives career exploration. Last year, 4,818 youth were employed. Participating employers, 1,202. Then when we look at the good work with unemployment insurance with our new implementation of our program, as you see, first pay timeliness reached 90.20%. And I will tell you, as of Friday, we should see 6 months of that. That means individuals have received their payments within the 21 days of the federal government guidance that we are to follow. So that's really good. And that is due to the new implementation of the system. And as you see, increase approximately 30% since that system was implemented. Workforce reentry tablets, 88 counties served, 8,630 learners accounts. Then when you look at the Apprenticeship Tennessee program that we offer, again, a great program with partnership with employers. 9,664 active apprenticeships, 11,659 total active apprenticeships. And then the number of programs that we have are 446.
Mr. Chairman, that is our presentation. We'll yield for questions from the committee.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. And we do have some folks on the list this morning to ask some questions. And so the first person on the list will be Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Thomas, thank you very much for the work that you've done. I've been through a lot of commissioners of labor and some ups and downs, and the last 2 have been really good. And I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I appreciate that. I want to go back to the conversation. It's off the screen now, but our apprenticeship programs and our youth employment programs and the value therein. And I just want to highlight the item number 1, the cost increase we're looking at there. And you mentioned TennCare shared savings and what we're able to do to try to get folks into this line of work. And just want to focus on for my colleagues on the importance of this. And on line number 2, the youth employment program. I've got a 13-year-old. I've got a young daughter right now, and what she's learning in school, some of these career exploration classes, she was tasked with what it would be like to be a college football coach at 13 years old, and just some of the opportunities that we're providing. And I guess not really a question, but an encouragement to continue to think outside the box as we're looking into these programs with our youth and our schools and continue doing that. Again, the urging from myself and this committee is to continue to be responsive. I thank you for the work that you did during Hurricane Helene in Northeast Tennessee, particularly when employers are no longer there, and what we had to do in the moment to work with those employees who had no place to go because of disasters that were affecting our region. So I appreciate, of course, I appreciate Tia as I see her in the room and the work that she and Matthew do. So I appreciate that very much. But just to maintain that vigilance and continue to be responsive to us as a legislature. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next, let's go to Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I had apprenticeship programs, shared savings. Just wondered if you could share with us how many people that we've served in those apprenticeship programs, and has the involvement been pretty much statewide, or is it just regionalized because of the access to those apprenticeship programs?
Thank you for your question, Representative Williams. So the program will begin July 1st of this
Okay.
year because it's a second year shared savings funds. That's when it's available to us. So we've spent this time getting our procurement, our grantees lined up. We have them identified. There are 13 grantees we'll be working with, and it is statewide. And so we're working with a lot of our training institutions across the state and ensuring that there's diversification in the type of careers in rural healthcare, whether it's allied or some of the more targeted, such as respiratory therapy and things where we know we have high industry demand. The goal of this and our commitment was to ensure that we didn't just duplicate and have the same programs across the state. We wanted to look at where the greatest gaps were and the counties that had the biggest need. And so for the last 2 days at my office, all the grantees have been in, and Teresa Smith, who's in the audience, has been leading that initiative for us to make sure that we're getting the programming right. And so after July 1st, we'll be able to get the funds in the hands of the grantees and get started, and we'll certainly provide updates to the committee.
Thank you. Back to the youth employment program. Obviously, it depends on who the recipient is, I guess, of those dollars, really the impact of it. It's great that we're opening opportunities for students to be able to look at career pathways that they might not normally have an opportunity to do. But for instance, in my district, I have 2 very successful coffee shops. One of them decides that they get to use this program, and these federal dollars pay all their labor costs. And so they have a third of their expenses are now borne by short-term commitment to savings there, therefore giving that business a competitive advantage over their competitor in town, therefore allowing their expenses to be diverted to grow their business when their competitor, and also a taxpayer in the state of Tennessee, is impugned by the funding of the other business. How does your department, or how does any of these dollars benefit the actual business operations for those who don't receive it? My concern might be that if we're providing for 100% of a payroll for a small business and they don't have that expense anymore, it's a completely unfair advantage because the other business didn't receive it. If it were a business that no one else served in that community, the impact wouldn't be as dramatic. How do we, going forward in utilization of this $7 million, how do we, going forward, not create an unfair advantage for one business over the other in Tennessee?
Thank you, Representative Williams, for your question, and it's a fair one. I think for us, the first year really getting the program off the ground, we were looking for business and industry that would really open up their doors to really provide mentorship and work experience for students. And so there were no businesses that were essentially not allowed to participate. It was really sort of first come, first served. And we really spent this time looking at where the industry impact would be. We want to make sure there was a diversification of businesses, that it wasn't just manufacturing, or it wasn't just retail, but it was any business that would participate. I think our challenge moving forward is looking at businesses that have once participated, not necessarily preventing them from taking advantage of it again, but making sure that when we're looking at the placement of students, keep in mind some of the students will only participate over the summer. Some of them may do year-round if they're in work-based learning programs through K-12, is to make sure there's more of an even distribution. But I think the catalyst will be business and industry that express desire to have the students, and making sure that we're giving sort of fair consideration to any business that wants to participate. Typically when we get these, and these are state funds, these are state invested funds. So when we disperse those through our nonprofits as well as our local workforce boards who were receiving the funds, is for them to really work in their local communities with businesses that had an interest in the youth workforce. And so we can do more diligence at the department, certainly, to make sure that that is not being left to a certain group of businesses or a certain type of businesses, but it's open to all. And part of that, honestly, this year, it will be us doing a better job of communicating that more widely. We heard from a lot of businesses that this is a great opportunity, but we didn't know it was there until it was too late. And so for us, our charge will be to make sure that we're doing more work to open it up to everyone so that they can participate.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I just think that there should be a duration of time cap on the money so
Sure.
that, because a teenage daughter is going to know pretty quick whether she wants to work in a manufacturing environment or whether she's going to want to work in a coffee shop. And for someone to get the state to literally give them their payroll for the entire summer while someone else is competing for those same dollars makes it an unfair advantage. And so I think we need to find ways in order to make sure that all taxpayers are provided for, or protected, or none at all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Representative Chisholm.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, most of my questions were answered based on a conversation based on the youth program, but I got one more. Do those funds go to those municipalities? Do it go straight to the businesses?
So it actually goes to the local workforce board or the grantees, which could be nonprofits. And so essentially they are in charge of, they actually pay the students. So the money doesn't go to the business directly. The business is a benefactor, but we're subsidizing the payroll for the youth that's enrolled in our program. So the business doesn't have any administrative sort of back end responsibilities for that, except to make sure that the students are actively participating. And then the administrative group of local boards or nonprofits are actually taking care of all the administrative work associated, and they pay them. So they're the direct payer, not the business.
You recognize, yeah.
So, do you have a idea of how many students or youth are benefiting from the program?
So we had around 4,800 students that participated. And the cap on that, and again, this goes back to the point, which was a valid one that Representative Williams made, we have a cap per student. So it's not unlimited. So for last year, for example, the max cap for each student was $4,000. That's based on the amount that we were allocated. And so in order to serve as many students as we can, we allowed each student to have a max so that we can serve more. So depending on the funding amount we get, we'll reevaluate what the cap should be for each student. And so with the dollars that we received, along with the administrative work that it was going to take for these groups to provide the support, that's how we came up with the number. And so that's something we'll also assess this year as we move through the budget cycle. If that's the amount, we'll have to revisit that, particularly for students who want to participate year-round as a part of work-based learning. So our hope is that we can serve more students, particularly those that did not have an opportunity to be served. It's important to note we had a wait list after last summer. We had a lot of pent up demand. We had a lot more students and a lot more businesses that wanted to participate. There just simply wasn't enough funding. I also want to leverage the point that we are not just relying on our state funding for the program. We also leverage the youth funding that we had in our existing coffers. That allowed us to look at students that had the greatest need that could qualify for the federal program. We use the federal dollars for that. The students who did not qualify under, and I'll be quite transparent, very rigid federal requirements, those students were able to participate under the state side of the program. So we are leveraging both sides and both pots of money to be able to maximize participation.
Okay, and last question. A lot of the awardees, are they concentrating in certain places based on population, or is kind of a moving scale?
So we had participation across the entire state. I think we obviously saw some communities that enroll more students than others, and a lot of that is really based on the number of students, the potential to be served. But again, it wasn't a mandatory program. So again, it was an offering over the summer. It was really two thoughts in mind when we implemented this. To be able to provide an opportunity for students to go to work over the summer. We feel like if students are getting an opportunity to put their hands to the proverbial plow, they're not getting in trouble over the summer. We can account for them. The second thing is to be able to give them exposure to a broad array of career opportunities that may spark an interest for them. And then I think lastly, could this potentially lead to an apprenticeable opportunity for students? We saw several businesses that actually hired these students after their time was over. And so we saw participation across the entire board. I think if we look by numbers, and I look to my CFO to make sure to keep me accurate on this, I think as far as participation, we probably had the most students enrolled in Memphis. Is that correct, Andy? I want to say we had more students enrolled in the in Greater Memphis, but we can definitely verify that for you. But it was available across the entire state.
Thank you for your amazing work.
All right. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner. It's great to see you today. And back in 2019, I think it was, we finally were able to get in the budget some money for that new unemployment system. And I believe it was rolled out this last year. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went? And are you seeing, is it easier for people to use? Is it easier for y'all to monitor?
It is absolutely easier to use. Thank you so much for your support, Chairman Boyd. I'm going to let Deputy Commissioner Hoskinson share some insights into that. But the fact that I can smile when you say unemployment system is a testament of how it has gone for us, depending on where we were before. So, Buddy, if you'll share.
Commissioner, I should have already said this to you and your presenters, but we will handle the microphones up here. So all you have to do is just wait till the red light comes on and then you'll be ready to go. So sorry, I didn't tell you that earlier, but you're recognized, sir.
Thank you so much. Right off the bat, you can see it in the first pay timeliness. That's where it meets the road. For the individual who needs those benefits, it's that first pay timeliness. And to go back and look at the past year, because we're about 1 year in, the tax program will be implemented in May. So that will be the next step. Really, truly, the efficiencies and the effectiveness for staff to be able to manage and take care of, to get that first pay timeliness out, has been tremendous to the citizens of Tennessee. And to know that when I look at the past 9 to 10 months of first pay timeliness, only 2 months did we dip right below, and it was just a few tenths of a percentage point. The federal guideline is 87. You know, as I reported, 90% in December. Looks like we're about to be on target for February at 89%. So that is good news for Tennesseans. And system seems much more responsive and much easier for the participants who need it to use the system.
Mr. Chairman, can I continue?
Yes, please
Okay.
do. Yeah, members, let me just say that once you're recognized, if you go back and forth and if we need to stop you, I'll certainly let you know. But once you're recognized, please just continue with the dialogue.
Well, you know, most of us that served during the pandemic, I mean, we dealt with unemployment. I mean, our offices almost became, proxies for y'all as far as getting people enrolled. It's a shame that that wasn't online then, because I think people were frustrated and saw the need for why we needed a new system. The other thing I was going to mention, a couple of years ago, Chairman Vaughn had this incredible idea, and we got it passed into law, and that is that the unemployment benefit period would be indexed to the unemployment rate. Has that been implemented yet? Can you speak to that?
Yes, sir, it has been. It's 12 weeks. The only difference is if someone is under the disaster unemployment assistance, as recently with a hurricane, that's the only difference. They fall under a different timeline, but first they come under Tennessee unemployment before they go to the extension if they're eligible for the disaster unemployment. So the 12 weeks and then the work search activities. So folks are understanding that, doing that, and then we're assisting them if there are opportunities with work search. If they're not understanding everything that they need to do, we have a better relationship, I think, with our customers with that understanding.
Well, and I'm not speaking of the work search activities. There was a bill that we had, and
Yes.
I think there was where if the unemployment rate got higher, they
Then
could
it
have
would
the
index
benefits
up.
longer. If we had a really low unemployment, it would be shorter. Has that been implemented?
Yes, sir.
We
Yes,
just
sir.
haven't had to use it because the unemployment rate
It
hasn't
is at the
shifted.
12 weeks.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm good now.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Thank you all
Good
for what
morning.
you do. You may have already answered this question, but I just wanted to be sure. When it comes to the youth employment program and the students are they enrolled in both the private and the public sector, or just the private sector?
So they're enrolled in both. We actually had students that worked in mayoral offices across the state. Some of these students have been kept on as interns when their time ended. Again, we wanted to make sure that all of the pathways that are available to students were at play. Some students are highly technical. They want to do things with their hands. Some want to get involved in civics. And what a great way to do that, to be able to work in offices with mayors and other administrative entities annexed to municipalities. So all of that, we saw students excel in all of those areas. And I think the most important thing for us, to your question, Representative Miller, was really opening up those funnels, allow students to really put in practice over the summer when they're not in instruction period, to help guide their journey when they're thinking about pathways. We know in Tennessee, we will always need the traditional academic four-year degrees and beyond, but we also need the technical degrees. We also need all the points in between. So our hopes is with the program expansion, and as we are invested in and as it grows, is that we can continue to target more and more industries where we didn't see students participate over the course of the last year.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Williams, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you again. I meant to ask you earlier about the tablet reentry program. It's very effective in my community. Just wanted to get a status update on it and see if we're going to continue this program or not.
Yes, we're in 88 counties currently with the tablet program. We're seeing more learner counts. We're seeing more hours being put into utilization on the tablets. Our goal has always been to look to how we can expand workforce opportunities on the tablets. And we've seen some examples of that in HVAC. We're looking to expand that in CDL. So I think the program is really going to be based on what each area needs. We obviously want to focus on sort of those high demand, so there's a job associated with that once they leave. But we're pleased with the growth of the program right now. We thought it was pretty innovative at the time, and we now know it's quite innovative. We get asked by our colleagues across the country about this program. And so we're hoping to do a little bit more. Hopefully we can get virtual instruction going as well. So yes, we are seeing a return on the investment.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your work in this space. We in Putnam County are through Becky Hull, who's our big champion for this program.
Yes.
The recidivism rate's been dramatically improved. We're finding people to get incorporated in the workforce, which is pretty amazing. And so I'm happy to hear that, this is a program we're going to stick with. I know, and we've made sizable capital investment to make sure it's inculcated into our jail population and things of that nature, so that they're there getting prepared for life outside once they're able to leave. So thank you for your support of that program. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here this morning. And Commissioner, let me say to you that I have learned and come to appreciate what you do. I think in the last few days more than ever. I really appreciate you and the work that you do. And I learned something from you that I'd like for you to take a minute to share with this committee. And that is the makeup of your workforce in terms of offering local contracts to people, and how the board makeup is compared to where you stand in the program. Could you, in a short version, do that for me?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. So our governance structure is a bit layered. So at the state level, we receive the federal workforce dollars here. Our state workforce board has governance over that. But we also have 9 local workforce development boards across the state. And their membership is appointed by the mayors in those communities. This is critically important because from a statewide perspective, we should not make the decisions for local communities on what their workforce needs are. We're here to be a partner. And so they will then select members from their business community as well as other community organizations to make up their local boards. They make the determination on which programs from which educational institutions can be funded. Those federal dollars support training, paid training. It's important to note the bulk of that funding goes to TCATs and community colleges. But again, those are local-based decisions that are done in partnership and under the policy and guidance of the state offices. I think it can seem at times cumbersome, but I think it works effectively because it allows for customization at the local level. We don't need to make decisions about a community from 220 French Landing Drive here in Nashville.
Sure.
And so they're able to do that. And so we've seen where those local models work well. The state is always here to provide additional insights and guidance, but I think that structure alone allows the voices, especially the mayor voices, to be involved in some of the workplace strategy, workforce policies and strategies so that there is a cohesiveness around both the state vision for workforce and the local vision as well. I hope that answers your question, Representative Shaw.
It does. And I thank you so much for that. And one quick follow-up on another level, where in terms of unemployment rate right now, I know we got a lot of jobs flowing around in Tennessee from every direction. What is the unemployment rate in the state right now?
Our average is 3.4%. I think that's correct. Yes, 3.4%.
Is that about where we should be? Is that up, down? What is that like?
Yeah, our unemployment rate is impressive. And when we look at, especially in the Southeast, Tennessee is near the top of that. I think Florida is lower. Our unemployment rate continues to be impressive. It is important to note for us, though, we all love to see low unemployment, but from the department's perspective, we always look at unemployment and we always keep an eye on labor force participation. We look at those two numbers together because even though unemployment can be low, labor force tells us how many people are actually looking for work. So we want to keep that number healthy. That's the number where we've seen be a little erratic in Tennessee, which is why we've been implementing a lot of these innovative new programs to get more people to come into the workforce.
So last question, what do you think for those who are looking for work? And my perception is the work is there somewhere. It may not necessarily be what they want, but there is work. So what do you think is causing that 3%? I mean, I guess in simple terms, if you're not working, why?
Yes, yes, and I think that's a big question. And some of it we know, some of it the data tells us, some of it is, we still have childcare being cited as a reason why some individuals are not working. Transportation, another, depending on where you are in the state. But we fundamentally believe that everybody who can work should work. And our goal is to provide very present resources to help that happen. We still do a lot of connectivity with individuals who are saying, well, I want to look for a job, but I don't know where to look or I don't know what type of job. So that part is still very important to help connect people with the right opportunity, because if you don't, you'll kind of get this turnstile of people work a job, quit, work a job, quit. So for us, it's not just about getting people working. We need people to continue to work. And so part of what we've also done is really move our resources and programming to more of a community present approach. So for the first time, we have our American Job Center staff in public housing in areas across the state. Because when we look at who's participating in the labor force, we see a lull in some of those communities. And we have good data in Tennessee. So we're using the data to say, if we see communities or zip codes where we're seeing low labor force participation, let's bring the services to the community so we can stimulate more integration into work and or training. Because I think training is still something that we need to invest in to make sure that employers are not getting unqualified individuals that is costing them a lot of money on training and retention. So we're also trying to be strategic in how we're offering training as well.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to jump back to the summer youth employment program. You mentioned a number earlier in your presentation about you all were asking for $7 million, 2 being reoccurring and 5 non-reoccurring to expand this program. I was looking back at the 23-24 budget appropriations, and we put $15 million in that account for the summer youth program. And as of, let me make sure my number's correct, 6/30/24, $8.1 million remain unspent. So in light of this, why have we not spent that money to this date?
So I will tell you that we have spent significantly more than that. I'm going to have our CFO tell you exactly where we are. I believe we have roughly $2 million remaining. And I'll allow our CFO to kind of walk through those expenses.
So yeah, this summer youth program, it started halfway through the summer in fiscal year 24. So half the summer was gone. So that first summer, we didn't get a good chance to really get a full expenditure in that July and August. So fiscal year 24, we did get May and June, which ended up being about $3.5–4 million as well. So we had $8 million to carry forward non-recurring funding. Now in fiscal year 25, we've expended up to $6 million of that $8 million, and we will probably run out of that funding before we even get to May and June. So you will probably see a budget amendment where we'll need to jumpstart May and June that we're working with F&A on, because we know we're going to run out of that funding. So we're averaging, when you look at 15 million over 2 years, $7.5–8 million.
How many of the youth are currently enrolled in the program at this time?
We've served up to 4,800 youth. I'm not sure if we have how many are enrolled at this point in time, because summer it's seasonal. So you're going to see those numbers jump in the summer. So the majority of the youth are in those summer months. But at this point in time in February, I would think that number would be a little bit lower. But the overall total that we've served so far is 4,800.
And can you tell me what businesses you have legally, if you can tell me what business are participating in this program?
We have, there's about 1,800 that have participated in the program. We'd be happy to share that with you, but it's a pretty extensive list. And also, as our CFO mentioned, we can get you the numbers on the current enrollments, but because the bulk of the students did participate over the summer, they would no longer be enrolled in the program. And as I mentioned, several of the local areas also have wait lists for kids that did not get to participate. Some may have reached their 4,000 cap over the summer. Some may not reach that 4,000 cap until later in the year because they're doing it after school as opposed to the summer. We're also competing with kids who are doing a lot of sports activities. So over the summer, they're in camps, they're in various things. So they may have elected to do it over the summer with employers. But we can certainly follow up with you on current enrollment numbers.
And finally, what metrics are you using to track the success of this particular program?
So our number one metric is our students completing the program. And also our businesses finding that the quality of the students they're getting and really their work behaviors, is it in line with what we're hoping to accomplish? Because a lot of this for students, it's not like it's going to be an entry wage or something that or retention we would look at for adults. We want to make sure that students are showing up and they're taking the program seriously, and businesses are actually realizing a value. We were very clear in the beginning, we did not want this to be a social experiment. This is work. So we want kids to show up and really be serious about that, and for businesses to really give them real work and teach them how to show up on time. We recognize that some of the kids, this may be their only opportunity to really get that modeling on what it means to show up on time, be attentive to work, not be on your cell phone, all the things that businesses will want to see. And so the feedback that we received anecdotally from businesses is that they were really impressed with the children. We do readiness workshops. A lot of the grantees do readiness workshops with the kids that are selected before they go into the program, so they understand expectation. And so one of our key metric is completion. If they're enrolled, do they actually get through the end of the program, as opposed to leaving it a week or two in after they've gotten their first check? And so we're happy to follow up with the committee on any of the residuals that we found during the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Sorry I was late for the beginning of your presentation. I was in Veterans Caucus meeting. Every year I've been holding what I call my State to the Streets events, where I'm bringing state government to the people in my district. And every year you all have supported us tremendously. And it's become one of the more popular vending booths at our State to the Streets, because people know that, you can get help with all kind of services, and you all have been very supportive, and I want you to know it's appreciated people in Shelby County really appreciate it. So thank you. And, we learn from them that they go throughout the state, and it's always one of the most popular things that people want to go to is the work that you all are doing to help people get prepared for jobs, helping them with their resume and just jobs that are available. So it's been very successful for us. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Sparks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I know the governor bragged on your program during the state address. One thing he brought up that got my attention, I'm sure it got some others, is the high cost of childcare. And it surprised me when he said that it was the equivalent to a 4-year degree today. And I thought, my gosh, how did our country come to this? So, trying to get, I don't know how do you deal with challenges like that? What are y'all solutions and what are innovations that y'all are trying to implement?
Yeah, it's a tough, thank you for your question, Representative Spark. It's tough because it's multi-layered. For the workforce community, I can tell you probably 5-7 years ago, we would say this was outside of our realm. That's no longer the case. We have to be proximal and are often having this conversation with Department of Human Services along with the great work they're doing for their Smart Steps program. We believe it is one of the primary reasons where we're seeing a lag in labor force participation is that for some individuals, particularly if they are non-degreed, it is easier for them to stay home and take care of their own children versus work and not have a wage that's healthy enough to pay for childcare. And so for us, we do offer childcare support coupled with training or employment opportunities with the funding that we received, but it's limiting. And I think there's more work to be done. We do know that the support we provide for students, for example, that are in the TCATs, because where some of these individuals can go through training with Tennessee Reconnect or Promise at no cost, they still need childcare to be able to show up in class. And so we're able to support that, but there's just not enough dollars to go around. Our federal funding has been in declination over the last 10 years, which is why we've needed more state support for some of the workforce initiatives that we're trying to do. And that's true of Tennessee and all the southeastern states. So when we think about childcare, I think it will be more of working along with Department of Human Services to think about how we look at those that are going to work so that we're not penalizing them to lose childcare benefits while they're working so that they can actually save. We know some states are doing similar work. When I talk to colleagues across the country, that those that may be barely above sort of the threshold on what qualifies them for childcare assistance, maybe expanding that so that your paycheck is not going to the childcare provider. You're actually able to save. You have something sort of in reserve. So we'll continue to look for that and how we can also look to expand our supportive services for childcare. But I wish it was an easy answer, but it is very tough and it is very expensive. And I think there's a cost on this side. Then I think it's also the availability of childcare. I mean, we're still seeing areas across the state where there's a childcare desert. So if someone wants to go to work, there's just not enough daycare available so that they have that opportunity. So it's both of those things.
Yes, ma'am. Going back on the youth employment program, Representative Freeman and I were sharing, I was talking about hard work, which I didn't think he knew anything about, just for the record. And, but I had my first job at 13, walked to work for $1.50 an hour. He'll get me back later. But, I was talking to our press secretary yesterday. I was just driving home and he was asking me for a quote for this major newspaper outlet. And I said, well, I want to put in there that I worked at Nissan. Nissan was hard work. I mean, on that assembly line, it was just hard work. But I said, what's even harder work is you take somebody like McDonald's or Wendy's. I said, I wish every young person could have the opportunity to work somewhere like that for 3 months. It ought to be mandated, 3 months, where you see the hard work that those folks put in every day. And you learn so much: customer service, people skills. In fact, the first guy that signed my petition to run for this position was Brent that works at McDonald's. Got the best attitude. I thought, man, if everybody worked like that guy did at the Nissan McDonald's, Brent is his name, world would be a whole lot better place. But I know y'all have a lot of challenges, but I just want members to let that sink in. childcare equivalent to a four-year college degree, something's wrong. And whether you like Trump or Musk or Doge or whatever, those are areas that we really need to be creative. And it's not a Republican Democrat issue.
Yes.
It's just a future issue for the nation and these young people. It's not a political issue. It's a real life issue. And if we don't have that work ethic, the country's going to continue to suffer. Work ethic's not a political issue, for the record. Anyways, I appreciate the great job you're doing. Appreciate the governor highlighting that and highlighting the challenges of childcare. Thank you.
Thank
Chairman.
you, sir.
All right, thank you. I want to ask a question. I know the proposed budget includes 6.3 million for a statewide micro credentialing program. And if you could maybe just speak a little bit about this, how long will it take to implement this if it does get approved? Also, how many people do you anticipate that will be actually in the program? And then, well, we'll begin there. I'll yield and let you answer that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So the micro-credentialing program, the foundational piece, I think where we would have to start is really looking at a credential inventory for the state. When I look at my colleagues, especially in the Southeast, who are faring well in this area, such as Alabama, they have an inventory of what they have established as what are value-based credentials. And I think that's something that we're hopeful that we can do here in Tennessee. I think we have incredible work going on across our institutions, but not every credential has the same value. And I think there is a role for the business community to play. And so part of this will be really working alongside the business community for those high demand skills that industry finds valuable that are associated with high wages. And so we'll need to take a look at that. And so there'll need to be some kind of study done to look at what credentials are currently available across the state and then which credentials we will place value on and offer those in support, again, with our TBR institutions and other private institutions that are doing really great work in industry recognized credentials. Last year, we spent roughly $10.2 million in federal investment on micro-credentialing. We anticipate the demand for that will only increase. The reason where it's prorated at 6.3 is because with the Rural Healthcare Initiative, some of the health-focused micro-credentialing will be baked into that design. And so in an effort not to duplicate, we're kind of backing off of that because we'll be able to use those funds for that. The remaining will cover the industries where we see there is a skill gap and a demand for those needs. And so we're using a little bit of anticipatory design here because it's hard to know how many, but when we look at our numbers from last year, coupled with the fact we've had a fairly active warrant season. And so we have year to date in 2025, we have over 1,450 workers that have been impacted by dislocation. Some of these are long tenured workers. They're the most ideal for micro-credentialing because you can retool them. You don't need to teach them about showing up for work. They've been doing it. But you need to retool them and upskill them so that they can meet the current demands. And so we're using that. Last year, we had roughly 7,200 dislocated workers. So we are seeing a big number there that we still need to get retrained. And so we anticipate a large amount of them will come from this population.
And do you partner with any other state agencies to the micro credentialing?
Yes.
What are some of those agencies?
So we're working with ECD, THEC, TBR, Education, Human Services. We are all in conversation about how we will retool and reskill Tennesseans across the state. And so there's about 7 agencies. We're also working with corrections. So all of us are working together. So even though labor is really making the ask, this is really a state ask because it'll be the ecosystem of all the workforce agencies that are attached to the program.
And then how do you measure success? How do you know you're successful in micro credentialing?
It'll be completion rates. It'll be completion coupled with wages. So we'll use our wage data for completers to see how many actually successfully went through the program to get the credential. And then we'll measure what we typically measure at the department. What is their entry wage? And then what is retention over time?
Okay, thank you very much. Chairman Held, you're recognized, sir.
Commissioner, what a joy it is to see you this morning. You are a lady that, and I think I told you this in Cookeville, that to see your passion for getting people to work and the part, and you hit on it a little while ago, of being going to the communities and going to these people and I'll kind of say something off of what Representative Shaw said. With your passion and what you're doing and the things you're doing, that 3.4 will be 2 or less because of the efforts that y'all are putting in. So thank you for what you're doing. So I've got a question for you, and maybe 2 here. The FY 2021 budget included $41.8 million of non-recurring for the development of the new unemployment benefits and tax system. An additional $61 million non-recurring in ARPA funding was allocated by FSAG. According to the Tennessee Resiliency Plan data dashboard, only $30.8 million of the ARPA funds have been expended. So first of all, can you provide an update on the unemployment benefits and tax system? And are you on time and on budget on that, Commissioner?
Thank you very much, Representative Hill. So I'll answer part of this, and I'll have our CFO speak to what was allocated for those projects. Our modernization efforts for the UI unemployment system went live on last year. So that is fully implemented, and we're seeing amazing returns. Representative Boyd asked this question earlier, and it was one data point that I should have remembered to say. Our old system, it would take an average of 45 to 50 minutes for a Tennessean to apply for benefits. It's taking an average of 15 to 17 minutes today. So that's the efficiency of the system. So that's fully implemented. The tax system is scheduled to go live before the summer. And so that will be fully implemented this year as well. Both of those systems are on time. I think the key to that is that we allow them to be tested both by citizens and by industry to make sure that before we put another plan in place, that everyone had an opportunity to weigh in on what it needed to look like. And so yes, we're on track with tax, and UI has been fully implemented. I'll turn to our CFO for the remainder of the question.
We are at the end of December, we're at 35 million. I believe at the end of this month, you'll see also a large jump in the expenditure rate. A lot of the expenditures that we'll see are post-implementation phase. So a year after implementation, Commissioner mentioned the benefit system, we have a large payout. It's back end loaded. We know a lot of defects are caught the first year after implementation. So we have a large payment at the end of February that's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So you're going to start seeing those large payments for those phases in the next couple of weeks. And then on the tax system, it's also backloaded as well. So we still have the development phase that needs to be completed and still need the implementation phase that's going to go live or scheduled to go live in May. So you're going to see those large payments come through as well. So over the next, by the end of fiscal year 25, you're going to see a big difference between that 30 million, 34 million, and you'll probably see that more in the $40 million range, and all of those. And we also have some retainage payments as well, where we held back waiting for completion after 1 year that will also be made. So I think the deadline is June 30th, 2026.
Okay.
So we're on schedule.
Okay. So basically the completion, the timeframe for completion would be June.
The deadline to utilize those ARPA funds is June 30th, 2026.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Next on the list is Representative Parkinson. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for all you do. Truly appreciate your work. Thank you, Representative Sparks. I do want to ask, I get a lot of complaints about customer service in our state. And the lack of soft skills in our state is endemic. What can the department do to help us shore up the soft skills, and not just with young people, but grown folks who lack soft skills also? So what can we do to help in this endemic?
Thank you for your question. There's my red light. Thank you for your question. We hear this a lot from employers, is the soft skills. I call them power skills, because if you can't problem solve, if you can't communicate, it's going to be very difficult to navigate work. So we offer that training within our infrastructure, within our American Job Centers. We have staff that offer those courses. TBR bakes it into a lot of their curriculum, so it's out there. I think if I could draw from my grandmother, it's a want to sometimes. And if I'm being totally transparent, there's a lot we can do as a department, but I tell people we can't overcome home training sometimes, which is why I feel so strongly about people going to work, because some of this you learn by doing. You're in an environment that's structured and you're getting immediate feedback. And so for us, starting young helps eradicate this when individuals are older, because they've had experience now. They've had somebody really tell them. I think also with the soft skills issue, it's understanding how to still motivate and get the best out of employees. So we talk to employers about that as well. Mentorship is something that we strongly emphasize, is that when we are making referrals to especially for people that are, maybe this is their first job. And I want to be clear, we're seeing first generation workers today, not young kids. We're seeing this in adults in 30s and 40s, that this is their first job. We're stressing mentorship because there has to be someone there to provide that peer support that can kind of help bring someone along. That is very important. We see this a lot with populations that are coming into work. Maybe they've left the incarceration, or maybe they're coming in because they have very low marketable skills. Making sure that there is a process by which upskilling can happen, understanding the importance of soft skills is going to be very important. And what that looks like for employers, we're not asking them to babysit, but sometimes it's, if that person, doesn't communicate well with their colleague, it's a conversation versus a fire. Because sometimes people legitimately, they're like, well, that's how I engage. And so I didn't know that was offensive to someone. And so I think there has to be the continuing education, but also the patience and the peer support baked into that, because it's the department has a role to play. I think business and industry has a role to play. And I think parents have a role to play. And I think we all have to do that in concert.
Right. And how do we create intentionality in making this something that we truly want to improve, right? Because part of our unemployment is due to that. I mean, sometimes people just won't even show up or even call and say, I'm not showing up. Right. And, for me, it was the military, Marine Corps. So you better not show up late. Right. And, but for others that didn't have that access, it's problematic. But I appreciate, the efforts that labor is doing. And of course you can't solve all of the problem, but I think we as a state, should really become incredibly intentional with making our state the most customer friendly state in the union, and I think that would be great for business recruitment. I think it would be great for employment and great for young people and adults. And so I just want to put that on your mind. But I also want to ask this, back not so long ago when I was a teenager, there was a program called CETA, CETA, I think it was, at the federal level. And they allowed us to, it was a workforce development program. They allowed us to go to school half a day, then go to work the other half. And when I say that program worked wonders for me because it helped me fine tune what I want to do. I worked in radio, as a teenager, which is what I wanted to do, and it definitely broadened my horizons quite a bit. And for those students that are living in poverty or high risk communities, it's an incredible aid. Is there any way that we can consider or start looking at or planning a strategy like that for our state and becoming a model for the other states to do?
Well, essentially, that's what our youth employment program was really founded to, really, it was a play of the old CETA program that I participated in as well as a youth. And so our youth employment program is really, it's a version of the federal program, but more importantly, I think the state investment is really what makes it more flexible because again, there is a lot of rigidity in the requirements today. on the federal side. So for example, if a student is low income, that's not enough to qualify them under the federal side of the program. They have to be low income and something else. On the state side of the house, we can serve a child who is low income and put them to work. And so that's really what this program is designed to be. I think the expansion and the iterative nature of this program has to be, and I said this earlier, is for us really getting out more in community to bring awareness to it. We did have a lot of demand last year, as I mentioned earlier in my comments, but making sure that we can connect the right students to the right industry and baking in a lot of what you said about the power skills, the soft skills into that. And I think that's something that we're looking to infuse in all of our programming, even in micro-credentialing. Before we start with the technical side, let's make sure we're taking care of the soft side of it. But I think going back to your question about youth employment, that's really what this program is designed to be. But I think this needs to be intentional, and I think it needs to be baked into our workforce fabric. And when we look at some of the states that are getting the biggest gains from their younger workforce, it's because this is not something that has to be reconsidered every year. This is a part of workforce. So every student, every year has an opportunity to do this. And I will say, this along with the work-based learning opportunities that is being offered in K-12, I think those two things working in tandem is a very powerful narrative to help get students engaged, earning. I think the value and the power of a student being able to work and earn for themselves, there's a look in their eye when they get their first check. Oh, yeah. And I think being able to duplicate that and replicate that year after year for students, for all students, is something that we're hopeful as we move forward.
And Mr. Chair, just last
one, please finish up.
And so, you know, that gleam in my eye after making that $3.35 an hour on the program was great too. So, but let me ask you this: is there any collaborative effort between labor and education to allow these students to go to work and earn credits for their graduation as part of this summer program?
So
or part of this youth employment program.
So the work-based learning component that happens with education allows them to get credit for their work-based experience. We work with them on the employer side. So I think that's kind of baked in. For this program, there's not credit associated with like the work that they do over the summer. I think they get work-based learning experience. So certainly that's something that we can look into. We've talked to education this year. They will be a core part of the redesign of the program. But currently the YEP program alone, the youth employment program, is not set up to give them credits.
That would be amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence.
All right, thank you. Members, that is all the time we have for the department. But before you all do go, I would be remiss. I think if I had anybody on speed dial for the past probably 3 years, it's been Tia back there. And so I do want to say, Tia, would you stand up? Because you have been. I'm going to embarrass you and she's going to kill me later. But when you talk about those soft skills and you talk about customer service, right there's where you need to start and find out how she does it, because I'm telling you, she does it right. And I don't want to be remiss to not mention Matthew as well, but you've got a good staff. So that's all I've got. Thank you again for being here. And if we'll now transition over to the Department of Veteran Services. All right. Good morning, General. Thank you for being here, you and your staff, and you may begin whenever you're ready. And I'll just let you know that we will work the microphone up here. So when you see the red light come on, you're hot and live and ready to go. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks, Vice Chairman Gillespie, all the members of the House Finance, Ways and Means Committee. We're excited to be here today to talk about the 25-26 budget for the Department of Veteran Services. I want to introduce my team real quick. My deputy, Mike Scholes, here, my budget Director Chrissy Yamasi, Assistant Commissioner for Benefits and Claims, Lorenzo Wills, Assistant Commissioner for Cemetery Ops, Patrick Rice, and Assistant Commissioner for Appeals and Accreditation, Travis Murphy. Also got our General Counsel and LL in the office, Catherine, are in the section back there with Catherine Hill. And we also have some of our Governor Fellowship veteran members here today, so in the audience. So without any questions, I'll go ahead and get started unless there's any questions from the group. I want to talk about our cemeteries, FY24, some of the accomplishments in our 5 state veteran cemeteries across the state. 2 of the 7 National Excellence Awards that was given out with 34 inspections nationwide, we received 2 of those out of 7 that were given out. Operational Excellence Award basically is the National Cemetery Administration's basically coming out looking at 95 different areas in your cemetery. To receive that award is rare. And so now in 4 years' time, we've had every cemetery that we've had receive that award. Our next inspection is April of this year down at Parker's Crossroads off of exit 108. So we're excited about that challenge and look forward to continuing that trend. Also, 3 of our cemeteries are currently under some kind of expansion effort. And the Middle Tennessee Cemetery should be finished up in sometime in the next 2 to 3 months. The West Tennessee Cemetery has just started construction on an expansion project there. And then the East Tennessee Cemetery at John Sevier is currently in the design phase of that construction expansion effort. Claims and field offices. So 13 field offices across the state. If you look back to FY 2022, we've had about a 73% surge in our claim numbers. If you go back one more year to 2021, you see that that's about 109% surge. We anticipate in 2025 another 21% surge. So a lot of activity out there with veteran service members and their families engaging our 13 field offices as well as the county service officers about getting their claims. I think there's many contributing factors to that, one being the PACT Act that came into play a couple of years ago. Another just being a pronounced effort on our part to really do a lot of outreach, make sure that we're getting the word out there to veteran service members and their families about getting the benefits they've earned. We talked about outreach. We had 189 outreach events in 2024. That produced 253 claims. We think we'll see that trend continue. We think we will see, we know we're going to do probably around 300 outreach events this year as well. So we'll continue to increase that outreach effort as we go forward. Additionally, every veteran that walks into our field office is not seeking a claim. A lot of times they're just seeking information. They're asking questions. They may be phone calling us. They may be emailing us about different things. So numbers of veterans served, that was over 11,000 in FY24. And we anticipate that could be as high as 21,000 or so this year. So looking ahead, appeals and advocates secured about $17 million in retroactive payments to service members, veterans, and their families in FY24. That is obviously a big number to look at. That goes directly to veterans in their pockets. And we're excited to be able to do that. A lot of those are retroactive payments, and that's why the number is so large. In addition to that, the accreditation portion of that section accredited over 200 county and state service officers in FY24. We still offer quarterly regional training and as well as monthly lunch and learns to make sure that those claims representatives out there are doing things the right way and engaging with veterans in a proper manner. Our inquiries. So this is how we gauge how we do our business. A previous question was asked about customer service. We really take this feedback serious. We went from 2,100 inquiries in 23 to 3,400 in 24. We anticipate another 10% increase in that category. That's where we look at Net Promoter Score. When we want to know what kind of job we're doing, if you're willing to go refer us to a friend or colleague or a veteran, We think that's pretty good, and our net promoter score is around 97% for the department. So we're real proud of that as well. The Honor Guard grant program that the General Assembly put money in place for a couple of years ago is starting to pick up a little steam. We've now reimbursed nearly $25,000 to the Honor Guard grant organizations out there across the state. There's still money on the table. There's still about $75,000 left in that grant. We encourage participation. We talk about it at all our outreach events to make sure that, you know, the different groups that are out there doing that military funeral honor service gets reimbursements for the items that they need to continue to do that. So we have a couple of new facilities going to be opening up in 25 and 26. The 126-bed State Veterans Home in Arlington, Tennessee, Eastern Shelby County, projected to open up sometime this year. We probably think early fall or late fall based on the completion date. And then we also have the Tennessee Wings of Liberty Museum that the legislature gave some money to a couple of years ago, FY23, that we anticipate will be opening up this time in 26. The Governor's Veteran Fellowship Program. We talked about some of the members of the second cohort being here today. We now have 6 new members that started in January of 25. That program has an 83% job placement rate with an average starting salary of around $90,000. So really, with the second cohort on board, we think it's a very successful program. Seems to be really picking up, fulfilling all the hopes and aspirations we thought that would bring. Our Veteran Ready Business Recognition Program launched 1 July 2024. If you hadn't heard of that, we talked about that for the last couple of years inside the department. We got the program ready. We launched it July 1. We had 65 businesses from all parts of the state that put in an application. Very proud of that program. It's really not about whether you become a bronze level member, a silver level member, or a gold level member. It's about helping businesses recruit, hire, and retain service members, veterans, and their families, and help them do that better. Because we've got a lot of that going on already in the state. A very pro-veteran business community out there that want to hire veterans. They see what veterans bring to the table. And so we're real proud of that program and how the success of its initial launch. The Tri-Stars and Stripes Council also initiated by executive order in July 3rd of 2024. We was able to put that into function, and we've had 6 meetings in the past 15 months. We've established 5 subcommittees, and the council right now is really focused on the strategic plan. And so the subcommittees, education benefits, equity and resources, veterans suicide prevention, employment and entrepreneurship, and outreach committee. So real excited about the council and the progress they're making. Finally, our increases for this year, we had 2 priorities. One was to expand our veteran service officer. That's primarily due to the outreach initiative that we have. And then our second priority too is to do some interagency operational efficiency and outreach expansion as well. Some of that is COLA related. Some of it is to directly support the outreach efforts we have inside the department. So our total increase this year asked was $727,900. With our budget, our total budget asked is $13,529,800. That concludes my presentation, subject to your questions.
All right. Thank you, General. And we do have several folks on the list this morning to ask some questions, and we will begin with Chairman Hale. Chairman Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner. Going to the cemetery situation, so I've got a couple of questions here. First of all, I want to say thank you. The new system is great when we go to scheduling, and I love the weekly updates that Robert sends from Middle Tennessee Veteran Cemetery. I appreciate getting those every Friday. But let me ask you this. In the Upper Cumberland area, there was some property that was bought by a veterans group up there with the hopes of putting a veteran cemetery. They did a lot of work and stuff. Can you expand on that or anything? Is there anything moving with that?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. There's been several years of that committee, going back to 2013 when the steering committee was formed to find the property. The Upper Cumberland Veteran Cemetery Support Association, very tenacious group that has really provided a lot of community involvement up there. Very passionate about that cemetery. So we purchased land in 2021 there in White County, just outside of Sparta center limits, 127 acres. We put the grant in 2021, right after we purchased the land, the federal grant that would allow us to establish a new cemetery there. And we have had a couple of issues since then that really is no fault of anybody at the state level, or especially the community. It's really a matter of enough resources at the National Cemetery Administration level to cover all of the requests they have. So there's 155 state veteran cemeteries across the entire nation. There's a $60 million budget to establish those, to expand those, to provide any operational improvements. And so really there's not enough money at that level to do all the projects that are put into the queue this year. This year we placed 39 out of 72 projects with the particular Upper Cumberland Cemetery establishment. So there's obviously you also have to compete with all the other projects that submitted for a new establishment. One of the competition milestones is how many new veterans you would serve with that cemetery. The way the NCA looks at that, with all the surrounding state and national cemeteries that have areas that reach into that within a 75-mile distance, they project that cemetery to not serve any new veterans. We don't necessarily agree with that. We've expressed that to them, but that's kind of how they look at it. Well, in 2023, about 18 months ago, the NCA bought property in around Blythes Ferry there in Meigs County, 226 acres, to establish a new national cemetery there in Meigs County. That's another factor now that is kind of, putting an obstacle there for us, because, it's not likely they would spend that same money for a state veteran cemetery that's only 60 miles away. So those are two obstacles, two challenges. We're not giving up. We're still talking to the CODEL, trying to make sure that they understand how important that is. But without more money coming into that budget, it's going to be a tall task for us to get that accomplished anytime in the near future.
Okay.
Patrick, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, he hit the nail on the head. It's a matter of spreading the peanut butter. They've only got $60 million. And just to give you an example, we've got 3 expansion projects right now that are in category group 1, and we sucked up about $28 million here in Tennessee over 3 budget years. So you can see that money doesn't go a long way.
Okay. Thank y'all so much. I know time's limited, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Williams. And let me just remind you, when you do answer a question, please be sure to state your name first if you don't care, and pulling the mic down to where we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Commissioner. Just as a follow-up to Representative Hale's question, obviously, with a large population per capita of World War II veterans that still reside in Cumberland County, it's unique for me to say that there are none within 75 miles of that new location. And I do agree about your analogy with peanut butter. I think I may use that in the future if somebody wants to fund something in budget sub. But the challenge there too is that the state's made a significant investment there. And the question I have for you, if the state were to stimulate additional revenues to help offset, does the entity take that into consideration? For instance, the cost to build that cemetery is exorbitant compared to, because it is new and it's not an expansion. So my question is, if the state were to put round numbers, $5 million to go towards that improvement. Would that improve the grant process or no?
I don't know that there's an ability to bargain that. I do know that they would allow the state to build it on with their own finances, 100% state funded, and they would still reimburse us for veterans buried in that. And then we get down to if we want to expand, we would have to go back and ask for expansion money. That would be way down the road, obviously, many years from now. But that is an option. It's just a pretty heavy price tag if the state, because it's essentially 100% federal funded if you get the grant. If you don't, then it's all state money.
Right. Thank you. We, 23, I think we provide you some resources, a little over $1.1 million for the new management system. Representative Hale alluded to that a moment ago. Just wondered how that, is it fully implemented? You know, has there been any challenges there that you'd like to share with us?
So we went through the procurement process. We have a vendor that has been selected. We're currently in the phase of implementing the system. So that's going to take several months to us to, first of all, find out, everything that's going into it, get the initial training, as well as our county service officer partners as well. So we want to have that system fully implemented by the end of the calendar year. I don't know that we'll have it fully implemented by the end of this fiscal year, but we want to have that fully implemented across the state by the end of 2025.
Do we think that with this new system, are we confident that we'll be able to get more appeals or more contacts as it relates to veterans because of it? Is that the reason why?
I think the system will give us some ability to do some analytics and draw some numbers. For instance, how many, what's the number one claim that's awarded? Just different kind of analytics out there. What's the veterans seem to be? What's the questions they're asking? What's the claims they're filing? All that data analysis that the system we currently have don't have, as well as the current system's legacy system. And, they're not going to do any upgrades to it. So we had to make this decision a couple of years ago. We've had the current system since 2015. And for us to really progress as a department, make sure that we have a kind of system that we can do those analytics and look at things, from an empirical way. We just don't have enough analysis or data analysts to sit there every day and grind that out because we just don't have that kind of resource in the department.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that work you do. I was doing some research for our next presenter, and I've been having a discussion about the number of veterans here. I reached out to our federal counterparts and was shocked to know how many veterans that we have that reside here in Tennessee. The numbers are staggering. I think the last number I saw between 25 and 45-year-old veterans, there are over 100,000 in Tennessee. It's pretty amazing to hear those numbers. And so there's a huge cohort of people that we want to make sure that we provide services to. And I appreciate the work you do in that space.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Representative Hicks. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if I didn't bring this situation up, being from Northeast Tennessee and, the Veterans Hospital being there in Johnson City. We have a large number of veterans in our area. And what happened on September the 27th was devastating. And, we've been trying to get a lot of those folks, we're talking about, good, hardworking people back on their feet there. And as you go out into the communities, it was amazing to me how many of these folks are veterans and how many of these folks has a VA loan and how many of these folks have totally lost every single thing that they have, everything. And now are actually sitting there looking at nothing but maybe a piece of land, some of them not even being able to look at a piece of land and still paying their home payment, their house payment. It's tough. And, they're coming to us as legislators and they're really, looking for help. Been trying to talk with the federal people to try to do something, to maybe do some loan forgiveness. They're making their payments. They're telling them that the only way they can help them is to quit making their payment and take their land, So it's an issue. I want everybody to be aware of it. I think from now on, every time I get an opportunity, I'm going to speak on it. I know that, this might not be in your purview, but there is a lot of veterans that is really struggling. I've watched veterans this winter trying to live in campers, trying to stay warm. I've watched them. They're paying a house payment and trying to pay rent and just barely making it. And, before September the 27th, they was living just fine and happy. So it's a struggle for these folks. And I just want everybody to remember that because it's so important. So thank you, General, for being here, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We have, as you know, office there at Mountain Home and office in Knoxville. And we've asked those county service officers in that area, hey, give us any feedback you can, any way we can mitigate anything or run something up the flagpole to see if we can help. And, we just want to be helpful. It is a very tight-knit veteran community in that upper Northeast area. So hearts go out to those folks.
Thank you. Chairman Grills, you're next. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for what you do in your team. And I didn't have to serve in the military because there's many men and women who put their lives on the line for people like me to get the joy of the freedoms. And I just appreciate the efforts that you put forth. On your third slide, I believe you could pull that back up there. You made a reference to, well, let me ask this question first. How many men and women do you have that are actually dealing with the inquiries?
So that our customer service inquiries, there's actually one full-time person that's assigned to that. We have one part-timer that helps with that. That is not everybody that's involved with it. When the calls come in or the emails come in, if we can answer that question with the customer service inquiry personnel that's designated for that, we answer it right there. If not, we've got those 13 field offices or appeals and accreditations or cemetery ops. That inquiry is directed to one of those. So in some ways, 2/3 or half of our force is involved in that, making that work. It's just that we have a central point for most of those inquiries coming in.
Okay, I understand. So on the left slide there, you see that year 21, 22, 23 is pretty much just even. And then you see that uptick there in 24.
Yeah.
What's that indicating?
Well, we talked about that earlier about the outreach efforts we've had. We had over 189 outreach events in 2024. We're going to have over probably 300 this year. We also did some media campaigns where we went out there and did some social media. We did some podcast streaming. We did some just radio media where we were out there just getting our message out. And I think when you go stir the nest, you're going to get more response. And that's one of the things that we've tried to do ever since we've been here. We think we've got a lot of great services to offer to veterans, but it does them no good if they don't know about it. And it's amazing how many people we continue to find that they don't even know what the department is or what they do. And we've got to educate them on that.
You see the trend going up like it is. Do you feel that the 2 new positions will be enough to actually meet the need?
Well, I mean, it's a start. We're trying to keep pace with what the metrics are telling us. And, we want to make sure that we make good sound decisions with the taxpayers' dollars of the state. So we're asking for those 2, and we'll come back next year and look at what that metrics continue to tell us. And if, we had a rise right around the pandemic in burials, and we went and reinforced our cemetery ops personnel, but that's kind of leveled off. So, we kind of take it year by year, what the metrics tell us that we measure as to what we need to go and put in our budget proposal.
And also in 2024, you said, I believe it was, you served 11,000 veterans. And you expect to see 21,000 this year?
Right.
Do you have the staff to actually meet those needs?
Right. That's primarily the reason you see that number jump like it did is they was primarily looking at the voter motor registration. When they come into our office, they was required to fill that out. We sat down and looked at that this year and we said, well, there's a lot of times they just call, ask a question, or send us an email and ask a question. It's kind of not really counting the effort that the different field offices and the other parts of the organization is contributing to, because they're still serving them whether they came in and filled out that form or not. So that's why you're going to see such a jump there. But we continue to see that we think that's going to rise as well, even without counting those new numbers.
And real quick here, how many counties do not have a veteran service officer in their county now?
I believe there's 2
Okay. And I'm assuming that's expanding every year?
in terms of not
Well,
having
I'm sorry,
one.
those counties over the past few years, that's expanded up to 2. That's all we like.
There's only 2 that don't have a
Okay.
veteran service officer, a
They're
county
not-
service
okay.
officer now. I believe it's Lake and Moore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all's efforts.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And members, just to be a reminder, we've got about just 4 or 5 minutes left. So if you could just ask your questions, and then I'll just ask the presenters to try to answer as quick, as brief as you can, so we make sure everybody gets on the list. Next is Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all. This is in reference to Honor Guard. In FY 23-24 budget provided $75,000 non-recurring for Honor Guard grants provided through the Department of Veteran Services. The FY 24-25 budget increased this grant fund by an additional $15,000 non-recurring. How many grants have been provided through this program? How many applications were received? What is the average grant award?
So we've had 14 applications. We currently have 4 contracts signed. So you kind of do the math. Well, what happened to the other 10? There's about a 43-page manual that they have to navigate to become a supplier for state government, be loaded into Edison where we can, reimburse them. It's kind of daunting, just to be honest. It's you probably would need some pretty good computer skills to go through that. I think that has probably squelched a little of the enthusiasm out there. We've tried to provide assistance, but you can't make them get loaded up into Edison. So that's been an obstacle. I'll just be honest with you on that. But we have four current contracts in place. 2 of the limit is $7,500 per fiscal year per Honor Guard. So we have 2 that's maxed that out. And there's others that participate. The other 2 has participated, but they hadn't maxed their amount out. We still have some education to do there. There's still a lot of folks. I go out, I talk to the groups, and they don't know that this program even exists. So again, back to the outreach piece, we've got to inform them of that. But right now, we've reimbursed about $25,000 of the 90. And we'd like to expand all those funds and get them out to those Honor Guard teams.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Next and last on the list is Chair Lady Moody. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General, and your staff for being here. I just simply wanted to say and let you know again how much we appreciated you making the effort to come to Tipton County back January last year on a Friday night to honor, he was 101 at that time. He's a 101-year-old merchant Marine that did not know he had gotten a Congressional Gold Medal. And but his service years, he got the qualification for that. And so we reached out to you, and you made that track and made it very special for all of us. And Tipton County, we are so blessed. We are so just to have so many veterans, and our Tipton County Museum honors a veteran every month that lives in Tipton County. And this has been going on for like 10 years. So we are blessed to have our veterans, love them, appreciate the work you're doing. Just wanted to tell you, we say thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Anytime I'll be in West Tennessee on Friday, I'll take advantage of that for sure.
All right. Thank you. In general, that's all the questions we have. And I want to thank you and your staff. Thank each and every one of you for being here. And thank you for what you do. All right. We will now ask the Department of Military, and we'll ask Major General Ross to make his way up.
sure.
Major General, thank you for being here, you and your staff, and you may begin whenever you're ready, sir.
All right, Chairman Hicks, Vice Chair Gillespie, and committee members, glad to be here today to present our budget. Along with my team, I'd like to introduce a few folks here. To my right, I have Director of TEMA, Patrick Sheehan. To his right, Alex Pelham, his Chief of Staff. And then our Admin Services, Jennifer Pelham. To my left, Army ATAG Steve Turner, Brigadier General Martin Hardley, and he's on the air side. So, but we're all one consolidated team. We work well. We feel like we do serve the citizens of our state very well as a team. Got a couple other folks sitting behind me here. Deputy Commissioner, Major General Retired Jimmy Cole. I've got my facilities maintenance folks back here. Andy Milligan, Colonel Andy Milligan, and also probably the person that you come in contact quite often with is Lieutenant Colonel Brian Salaka, who's our legislative liaison and director. So glad to have them. They helped me prepare this budget this year. We appreciate Governor Lee's support of these items that we'll brief this morning. And when we start to think about through this, our goal is to provide the best services to our state, both day to day and in times of crisis. We take pride in our motto of ready now. There's a lot of tasks that go into that when the September 27th occur. Our role is to be a supporting partner with other state and federal and local agencies, including our airmen and soldiers, to create a capable and mission-ready force. I recognize many of you in here as neighbors, fellow veterans, friends, and supporters who've helped our department over the years with critical resources, budget appropriations, and legislation. We appreciate that support. I want to share a couple of things today, some returns on your investment that you've made with the military department. But we're presenting what we believe is a very responsible budget with 8 items that represents our request above the base budget. These, along with our capital improvement request, postures our team to continue modernizing and serving the citizens well into the future. We find ourselves in a very strong position, and I'll elaborate on that in just a minute, to ensure that we maintain our current capabilities and are positioned for growth and competing for additional force structure and capabilities that both bolster our national defense and serve our citizens in times of need. Your military department is a team of teams that includes TEMA, Tennessee Army National Guard, Tennessee Air National Guard, and also our Tennessee State Guard. We're excited about the continued interest and growth of our STRONG Act. This program, even with the challenges of double-digit growth and participation, has done wonders. As a return on your investment, I want to share something with you. Just this past week, our National Guard team reached a critical benchmark that we haven't seen in over 15 years. That's 100% strength. And strength is measured in authorizations, the number of authorizations that the Department of Defense provides the Tennessee Air and Army National Guard. So on our air side, we're at 108% of authorized slots filled. That's they are literally a one-off in this nation of 54 states and territories. Even when the Army Guard wasn't at 100% strength, we were stronger than others, but we hit that milestone last 2 Tuesdays ago, where we're back. We haven't been in that territory as far as strength goes since 2009. I say all that to say a large part of that has to do with our STRONG Act and the benefits that you all have provided to our soldiers and airmen that are different for Tennessee than there are in any other state. We are different. So rolling right into the budget and the budget request, our first budget item applies to our STRONG Act program. So just to give you a little recap on that, in 2018, at the request of the military department and several of you on this committee, the Tennessee legislature funded our initial STRONG Act legislation. Since that initial inception, in that initial cohort of 164 soldiers and airmen, we've seen growth every year. And in 2024, we have 833 of our soldiers and airmen enrolled. Excuse me. Since 2023, we've had 174 service members pursuing graduate degrees. We've had 348 soldiers and airmen receive their degrees since 2018. Literally, this program has served thousands we're well over the 1,000, 2,000 mark on number of students that are in and taking part of this program. With this growth, we've seen an exponential increase in cost, in large part due to the number of applicants that are taking advantage of it. And it is very, very well known and understood in our formations, but also due to an increase in tuition cost there. So our request is for $500,000 in additional recurring funding. This will bring our annual funding to $4 million a year. So that's our first request. And that's primarily over on the military side. When we get to item number 4, I'll transition over to Director Sheehan, and he'll run you through those. But our second request is to fund 2 existing positions within our admin services department due to the increased workload in support of TEMA, Army, Air, and administrative workload has grown significantly. These are not new positions. These are reclassified positions within our department. These positions will be for a procurement director and a talent manager. This request is for $134,000 in recurring funding. Our third request on the military side is for non-recurring funding to facilitate the initiative of transitioning our phone services to an enterprise solution across all of our armories and Joint Force headquarters. The cost of this funding is $420,000. We have some capital improvement projects as well. Once Director Sheehan goes through the next 5 requests, we can skip over to the capital improvement projects.
Thank you, General. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for your time this morning. So our first improvement request is to enhance flood preparedness in the form of building a Mesonet series of weather sensors to help us better understand in real time what impacts the weather is having. So this is something that exists in other places, but the concept of operations that we have right now is to build one primary multi-array weather station in each community and then increase sensor density for things like rainfall in places that we're worried about flash flooding. There is a one-time cost for us to purchase this equipment. One of our employees helped build a Mesonet in another state and operate it. And so our estimate on the cost of emplacing this is based on her experiences and seeing what the market rates are. There is a recurring cost for it, and that's for connectivity and maintenance. And we know these things will get vandalized. There'll be things pilfered. There'll be things damage and parts will need to be replaced. So we're just trying to be realistic about that and have that in there. And then connectivity. So we know there'll be data charges and some places aren't wired yet. And so we'll need to find ways to connect those sensors to our central system. Our next request is for regional response assets. So we have, as you might imagine, we've had trailers and vehicles that we use to help establish incident command posts and incident management locations. And those things which we took are decades old at this point, and the tires are dry rotting, the trailers are starting to fall apart. And so in looking at how do we renew those things, get them so the maintenance costs aren't skyrocketing, we looked at changing over to Sprinter vans. So being able to put those things, I know most of you all drive with trailers, but for many people that grow up, driving a trailer is a different skill set, and it's a struggle for folks. And so, people back into their own trailers sometimes and knock the trailers over. It's difficult sometimes to get trailers into rough terrain, and a lot of times where we operate, it's in an unimproved surface, or the roads might have washed away. And so we're trying to get things to places. So Sprinter vans help us reduce some of the training effect that's needed to get assets into places. But we were also asking for trailers. So one of the things that Helene taught us, so we had switched to try to go just for Sprinter vans as a way to make it accessible. But Helene reminded us that there'll be disasters and events in the state of Tennessee that will require us to leave things in place for days, weeks, and months. And so while the van's important as a way to get there quickly and establish connectivity and provide a place for our folks to work, having trailers and things like that that can move extra equipment and supplies and that can be left in place on an incident command post is important as well. We have 2 different radiological detection requests. One is to essentially replace a a vehicle that's used to escort radiological materials around the state of Tennessee, as you might imagine, is the home of Oak Ridge and a couple of nuclear power plants and nuclear fuel services. We occasionally have nuclear material that is transported and escorted across our state, not just within Tennessee, but also across Tennessee. And we have a system of making sure that we escort those things and make sure that they're safe, and being able to assure the public of their safety as well. The vehicle that we have, the technology is getting outdated. It's not vendor supported any longer, so we're looking to replace that. Similarly, with what you would think of as a Geiger counter, we've used our funding streams with the Department of Energy and Tennessee Valley Authority to replace equipment in what we call risk counties, or those counties that are adjacent to those facilities, to the extent that we can. This will help us make sure that we provide the same type of equipment with the same training requirements in other counties that we've identified that are on transportation corridors. So these are mostly rural jurisdictions, and it simplifies our inventory management and our maintenance of this capability. And then the last thing is the General Assembly was kind enough to give us the ability to have a fourth regional office in Chattanooga a couple of years ago. So as that's being stood up and we're retrofitting a facility down there, we're operating out of the Armory in Chattanooga with the National Guard, and we just need a generator for that facility there. So this is a request to make sure that we have persistent power at the facility. So thanks for your time, ladies and gentlemen. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you again for being here. And we do have some folks on the list this morning. We're going to begin with Chairman Grills. Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just pretty much have a comment, but the MESNet system that you brought up, I know we've talked about it several times, and just the efforts just your effort to get that thing up and running, I appreciate. But being able to prepare in a better manner for these floods that we've seen. I mean, I know my counties have been hit 2 out of the last 3 years. And we look at it from preparing for an emergency, but also what the ag community, we can start having real-time data from Tennessee. Our insurance providers for the farm insurance and the crop insurance, they work from models that are made and put together in the Midwest out of Oklahoma and Nebraska. We have no data here in Tennessee. We can actually combat whatever our insurance providers want to say. And you and I've had these conversations, and I'd love to talk more about it if anybody has any questions. Probably not, but I just appreciate that, because this is really going to be a big asset to the ag community, and I'm looking forward to seeing it up and running.
All right. Thank you. General, was you going to come back and talk about capital? I think if
I was, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, but I can hold and answer questions, and then I'll talk about capital.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to Chairman Williams. You're recognized.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Director. I still do it every time. Thank you, General. Thank you, Director, for your hard work and your team. It's hard to believe, Director Sheehan, be 5 years. Yeah. Next week, we're the first, I think, natural disaster probably in your tenure started here, and since then we've had a bunch. So it's been very difficult years. My encouragement to my good friends from Upper East Tennessee is that there is hope, and you guys are bringing a lot of that to people. And I know it's been a big challenge for you and your staff. They've had to see things and be ready to go at a moment's notice when they never knew what they were going into. And so I want to just take time to recognize that and make sure that you understand our thanks for that. I mean, from Waverly floods to tornadoes in Putnam County here in Nashville and East Tennessee, the fires in the Smokies, and now this. It's been a very challenging time for your departments and your staff. And we just want to make sure that you hear from us that we're very thankful for the work that you do and the importance of it. And so I appreciate that. I did have a question you mentioned it earlier in the FY 22-23 capital. We provided a total of $472 million. 59 million of that was for the TEMA warehouse and maintenance center. Just wanted to see if we could get an update on where we are on progress from that project. And also there's in this year's budget, there's another capital improvement project. And I think it's important for us as the members and or for Tennesseans to know what the difference is between those projects and what their mission and value is to your departments?
Yeah, Alex can provide specifics on the warehouse, but that's proceeding in accordance with the plan that we had with General Services and was approved. But Alex can provide specifics on where we are currently.
There we go. Thank you. Alex Pelham, Chief of Staff at TEMA. So we have gone through the process and selected both the designer and the people that will build it. We went through, completed the design. We had site selection. We've been to SBC, and we are at the point where they are bidding out the actual materials and whatnot, and expect to break ground very, very soon, in the next month or two. So we are a little ahead of schedule, which I'm very happy to say on this project. The second part, a little bit about what this is, and then I'll turn it over to Director Sheehan about this year's, is this provides us roughly 110,000 square foot of rack storage, which will allow us to serve as a central warehousing for things such as tarps, water. We saw it with PPE. We look at it with any commodity that we need to push out heavily, like we saw in Upper East Tennessee. It provides us the ability to have that at a central part of the state, to where we're not having to rely on supply chain issues, which we've seen and I think we'll continue to see, unfortunately. But to be able to have Tennesseans prepared, at least for the first bit, that we can push things out while we're bringing it in and we're not just drop shipping everything. It also allows for space for our middle region, where their staff members will be.
Okay. Our middle region folks are currently working out of this facility on Foster Avenue, and there's increased maintenance costs with that facility. I think there's been chatter at different points in time about trying to consolidate away from that facility and make it available commercially. It's also where THP's headquarters is, and among some other things. So warehouse space, there's nothing glamorous about the idea of needing warehouse space, but I can tell you, I was concerned about the ability to store, sort, break down, and move commodities 8.5 years ago. And we struggled some on March of 2020, moving massive amounts of commodity. We struggled in the aftermath of the 2016 wildfires, because there's no warehouse space in Sevier County. So we were taking things into parking lots and having to get forklifts and then, have trucks unloaded by hand. So our ability to scale up to meet the commodity demands, the humanitarian needs, was pretty difficult. So we're thinking of this as the ability to receive material, store material, break down material, and push it forward to where it needs to go. This is a physical infrastructure part of that, this warehouse that we're getting ready to break. I think it's vitally important. Your colleague in the Senate, Chairman Watson, pointed out that we probably need multiple of these, and I'm not going to say that he was wrong, but we're trying to be prudent and proof of concept. Under COVID, we struggled with getting warehouse space. We used donated warehouse space. We ultimately ended up renting a facility near the airport. Not optimal. We had to engineer solutions to make things work, because almost 5 years ago now, we also started trying to get masks and gowns and hand sanitizer and things that maybe with hindsight we didn't need as much of, but we certainly needed KN95s. We needed things, and we provided support to every single classroom in the state of Tennessee so that they could reopen in August of 2020 with the uncertainty that COVID provided. And warehouse space was vital for us to be able to do that. And while hopefully we don't face something of that magnitude or that level of uncertainty again, we know that we need to be able to provide supplies and materials to Tennesseans, to our first responders, to the medical community. After disasters, we know we need to stand up shelters, and a warehouse is a vital way for us to be able to have those materials on hand and be able to support those.
Just a quick addition on this as well, as we've talked a lot about flooding and wildfires, but we know there's a threat out west with the New Madrid. And when, hope I'm not here, that happens, that the supply chain and the distribution chain will be very much affected. So us being able to mass store things like water, shelter kits, tarps, things of that effect. It makes it even more pivotal for what we're doing.
Thank you for that. And just to clarify that we had two projects. One is a warehouse distribution capability. The other is an emergency operations center that's in the budget for this year. That's the difference between the two and the funding associated with that. Just a quick follow-up on the warehouse. Does the number that the legislature set aside provide for the resources necessary to buy the water and provide for the tarps so that when you do have that facility that it's actually provided in there?
We have some materials on hand. We use our operating to do it currently, and we'll continue to evaluate that in future budget years.
Yep. Well, it'd be nice for you to, for your department to share with me what the costs would be associated with that, because it'd be paramount for us to make sure that those resources were available by the time we unfortunately might need them again. I wanted to follow up one other quick question, discussion you and I had, General, offline. One of the concerns I have really is about the safety and security of our facilities across the state. I know back in the fall, there was a lot of discussion regarding drones and capabilities and things like that. Just wanted to put it on the record. It is a problem that we are seeing across the state. It is an issue. How can we better partner with you and our federal colleagues as it relates to helping you be able to continue to provide safety and security to our bases here?
Well, at a basic level, Representative Williams, that also is in our capital improvement project here, our request, but it is not necessarily for drones, but you're exactly right. We saw a rash of that earlier last fall, and it seemed like the more that we saw it on TV, the more we saw it in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, up to this point, we've had 4 incidents, two in East Tennessee at one of our air base there, and then 2 at armories. In all 4 cases, we believe this is, especially there around Christmas, well, in some cases, they were apprehended. 2 of those cases, the suspects were apprehended, and they were our fellow citizens and our fellow neighbors with a new toy, and not recognizing that they were operating over restricted airspace, especially at McGee-Tyson. So back to the capital, so that we have a process, we're reporting these items. Obviously, we don't have the authority to engage targets or threats. We're restricted by multiple laws and policies from both DOD and local agencies. So most of the time, we're a reporting agency, and we report through the Tennessee Fusion Center first. We make sure that all of our friends and neighbors here in Tennessee know what this is so we can identify it. And then we report that back up through Northcom and stand by to see. And we turn this over to local law enforcement unless there's actual physical bodies standing inside McGee-Tyson or on our armory operating these things. We haven't seen anything in the last 45 days. So maybe, hopefully it'll be, it's a rash of unfortunate incidents. On the other hand, we know that there in other places in this country that there have been drone activity over secured sites that were indeed not our friends and neighbors. So with our capital improvement request here includes $5.5 million in force protection improvements. We started this initiative a couple of years ago just to physically improve our armories and our air bases. We got through a couple of years of that, and then last year we paused it, or the funding wasn't appropriated, I don't think, last year. We'd like to finish that up. That would complete back to just the basic safety. Let's do the basic things good first. Installation of ballistic doors at each location that we have remaining. And I can tell you we've done about 2/3 of our state with ballistic doors and gates and fences, but this would help us finish up that initiative. Probably not the answer. I wish I could tell you, hey, we've captured everyone. We know who they are. They're not our friends and neighbors, and we're secure. But in this case, that's the intel that I can share with you.
All right.
On the 4 incidents we've had.
All right. Thank you, General.
All right. Thank you, members. Just to bring to your attention, we have about 5 to 6 minutes left and several people on the list. So we want to get to everyone. So again, just be brief in your questions and answers. All right. Let's go to Representative Hicks. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General, for being here, and thank you, Director. You all are in a role to where you like sitting here in this committee. I've been here a couple of years, and you really don't understand what you guys do until we need you. And in Northeast Tennessee, whenever we called and we needed you, you showed up. And I just want you to know how much that the citizens of Northeast Tennessee appreciates that, because it's huge. What you all come in and do in a kind, good, organized, because locally, whenever you go through something like that, at the beginning, it's very disorganized, okay? And you guys know how to put people together. You know how to handle people. You know what to do in certain situations. And it's remarkable how you all help Northeast Tennessee. And I just want to say thank you, because we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Hicks. I will, in fact, make a few comments on behalf of Director Sheehan. It's number one, not all states are organized like this, where we have our emergency managers in the building working with us. And what you may not realize is when things like that happen, he becomes a lead and I work for him, and our team becomes resource and capability providers. All of us in this uniform have deployed multiple times. I know from the community I reside in, I've never had the opportunity, or there's never been a need for me to respond for my neighbors to see what I do in this uniform outside of going to combat. But I will say that there's no more noble mission. I hope I never have to do that in Hardeman County or Madison or Chester. But when you talk to our soldiers and airmen, as Patrick tells me what is needed, if we need 600 and we put that call out, we are the volunteer state, 1,000 will respond. And that's exactly what happened. But we see it as one of the most noble things that we can do. Use those skills, that equipment that we have on the Army and air side, and help our neighbors and friends.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the essence of time, I'll just simply take a moment of personal privilege to tell you that General Ross is my constituent. So the question that I would ask him, I'll ask him one day while we're talking at home.
All right, Representative Love, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we've been talking about disaster relief. 2010, I was pastoring St. Paul AME Church on West Hamilton when the floods hit and had to set up a flood relief site there. 2020, I'm pastoring Lee Chapel AME Church. Tornadoes hit and had to set up a tornado relief site there. Listen to you talking about the warehouse and the need for a place to store things. I surely understand that. Here's a question I'm asking. Have you considered, would you give consideration to putting together a database of faith-based institutions where you can actually get to a parking lot or the facility in those areas, so that as you're trying to deploy your services, you have some space that you may not have to lease, but a place that people also feel safe in generally, because we found to be very helpful when we set up our sites, that people knew where to come. Our issue, to your point, was storing things, but we had the resource here in Nashville with Metro with some stuff that already set up. But I just want to put that out there. Then in some of our communities, maybe consider that a database of place that you can call immediately if they're not affected by it. Thankfully, we weren't affected by the tornado or the flood, and we're able to be that for our community. Thank you.
Yeah. We're one of the things the General Assembly gave us was a position last year, and we're going to be posting that soon, and it's a faith-based outreach coordinator for a couple of reasons. One, I noticed after 2020, churches struggled with meeting the documentation requirements from FEMA. So the way churches keep their books, isn't the same. They're not complying with GASB standards necessarily.
Me and Shaw are, just for the record.
So part of that outreach will be like helping them improve, because you have to be ready to recover sometimes. And so the other part of that, though, is our outreach that's organized under Alex for private sector generally, things that are not governmental, with Austin and Kate and whatever this position will be, we'll work to make sure that we're organizing that kind of data, sir.
Please, if you would keep me aware of that. I'd love to help in the Nashville area to help coordinate some of my colleagues around that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody. Yes.
Chairman, and thank you all for being here. I just want to go revisit. I'm in West Tennessee, and so the earthquake, of course, is always on our mind. We have a very strong Tipton County CERT team, but I know there's just so many when the big one hits. And I was able to go to a mock drill with the Tennessee Guard early when I first came here, and it was on an 8.0 earthquake in Memphis. Oh my gosh! So I just would maybe like to connect with you since we're short of time and just see what all we can learn from you to keep being prepared as we can be.
Ma'am, for the last several years, we've conducted an exercise called Tennessee Maneuvers, short 10-man. We focus on different areas. This spring, it's focused on the earthquake in West Tennessee, and we've got multiple, approaching 100 partners from both active component, National Guard, reserves, civilian organizations, law enforcement, Secret Service. All will be focused on our end of the state for this one exercise in this spring as well. TEMA be there with us as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And the last person I have on the list is Chairman Hulsey. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you so much. To the air wing side, I used to own a Cherokee 180, sold it a long time ago. Should never have ever done that because I can't even afford a propeller now. I'm offering my services free. I'm cheap. I will fly right seat for nothing if you'll hook me up.
Yeah, somebody top that. All right, so that is the last person I have on my list. So Major General, thank you very much. You're recognized, sir.
Yes, sir. I didn't get to go over the capital improvement. A lot of that's roofs, parking lots, things that are not always grab the top headlines. But Patrick's already mentioned the EOC, much needed. There's also our one of our top priorities that's listed in there. If you have questions, reach out to me, reach out to Brian. But it's a $7 million purchase of a piece of property out of Smyrna, as we will be losing our lease at BNA. And there are some critical assets and capabilities there that do things on a daily basis that you may see on the 6 o'clock news at night. You just didn't know your fellow Tennesseans were doing those things. And along with millions of dollars in jobs and economic opportunities. So that $7 million purchase of some property out there sets the stage for us to move out there as our lease expires in 20 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Major General. Thank you all for being here today and for your presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, without objection, committee, we will now be back in session. We're back in session, so that does complete our calendar for today. Just a reminder, the budget hearings will resume on Monday, March the 3rd, 2025 at 8 a.m. in House Hearing Room 1. Do we have any further business coming before the committee? Hearing none and seeing none, without objection, we are adjourned.